Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Honest Hour. I'm your host, Peyman Shahmirzadi, co-founder and CEO of Peachscore. Today's guest is Mikael Lemberg, founder and CEO of GetBob, an AI startup building what they call AI colleagues instead of AI assistants. We'll talk more about that. Before founding GetBob, Michael spent years leading innovation and partnerships, scaling businesses from under 10 million to more than 200 million in ARR while launching more than 20 major technology partnerships with companies including Meta and Brandwatch. Today, he's applying that experience to one of the biggest opportunities in AI, giving businesses autonomous digital employees that can actually perform complete jobs instead of simply helping with individual tasks. Michael, welcome to Honest Hour.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that introduction.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to have you here. Okay, now to start out with, I always like starting with the founder journey before we start talking about your company. So let's start there. If you would, could you share with us a little about yourself and how did your career eventually lead to you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think I've always had a small seed of an entrepreneur growing in my belly somewhere. When I started my career back in the days, right around the time when Facebook became a thing, I actually spent the first few years being a freelance consultant, just
Mm,
helping uh, companies understand how to implement social media strategies in their marketing. Then life took a turn, and ultimately, I ended up becoming an employee in some growing SaaS companies, building social media platforms and
mm.
social intelligence platforms. And then I spent about 15 years doing that,
Oh,
up until summer 2024, where I decided now I'd spent about half of my career making other people rich, and maybe it was time to take a bet on myself. So at that point in time, I founded what ultimately became GetBob. So I guess my journey is a little bit different than some other
mhm.
founders. I didn't start my first company when I was 18 years old
Sure.
as a
Yep.
college dropout. I actually had a whole career first.
Amazing. So let's branching on that. So you spent many years in enterprise, working on enterprise software and partnerships. What was some key learnings that you saw as you were doing that that eventually became the inspiration for GetBob? Was it something you saw in that space? Was that's where you recognized the problem? How did that journey in the enterprise world get you go, you know what, maybe I should go off and build a company and work on this?
Yeah. So, some of the companies I worked for, when I joined them, I was employee number two or employee number
Okay.
10, employee number 80. And in some cases, they grew to thousands of employees over the time when I was there, right? So I kind of saw how does a company operate when you're super lean and scruffy versus what happens when suddenly you're a big organization and you get all these management layers and bureaucratic layers in between. Um, you know, Features and products that a team of 5 engineers could ship
Hmm.
suddenly require 20 engineers if the companies got big enough because half of them were not building anything. They were managing each other. And so that was kind of the background that I came from when I decided to start GetBob. This frustration that when you become really successful, you also become really bureaucratic.
Oh,
And
very true. Yep.
yeah, how do you grow and succeed without getting to that step where things slow down?
Was there a moment in that journey that you saw, GetBob is the company that I have to build? Did you see that, or was it a lot of trials, like what about this or that? Or was it, no, this, I gotta go build this AI company?
It's funny you ask because when I started this founder journey and I founded the company back in summer 2024,
Hmm.
it was actually under a different name and a different brand. And I think my first explorations were more in the area of enterprise business intelligence and smarter dashboards and so on. Ultimately, that led me to what became GetBob. But the first domain name I ever bought before I registered my company was actually getbob.ai.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
even though I didn't pick that name to begin with, I think it was sitting somewhere in me all along. And
Interesting.
at some
Okay.
point, as the product evolved and the use case became more clear, I also realized that Bob is an acronym for Business Operator Buddy,
Mm.
and then everything kind of just fell into place.
Amazing, amazing. So, given your enterprise experience, frankly, you could have started any kind of SaaS business, right? You got that background. Why did you pick AI and why now? You talked a little bit about that, but was it something that you saw that, AI is the place to spend the time? Because you literally could have started any type of SaaS company, not necessarily in an AI.
I mean, it was a mix of personal interest first and foremost. Like I
Oh,
felt
okay.
like I wanted to do something that I could learn something from doing as well. I could have played it safe and just said, I've done social media intelligence for 10 years, so let me build a social media platform or a social media management company or some SaaS within that space, right? But I actually wanted to do something where I could go out and say, this is a learning journey for me as well. Um,
Amazing.
so that was a big part of my motivation. Then obviously, in terms of understanding problems and addressing issues I had seen in my previous journey, the place I started out was this thought that every time in my previous employment, a customer asked some sort of operational question.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Why is this not working? Why is that working well? The answer was almost always, here's a business intelligence dashboard. Like, here's one more dashboard for your tabs, right?
Hmm.
But very rarely that dashboard would actually produce any, intelligence itself. Then it was all up to the eyes of the beholder,
Yeah.
being able to look at that and extract some sort of learnings and insights from that. And we've gone through the whole revolution of ChatGPT and Anthropic and Perplexity and all that. And so I had this basic idea. What if you could just chat with your business? What if you could just ask any question, not get a dashboard in return, but actually get an answer to your question? That was
Wow.
sort of what got me started on this.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so I've gotten to know you for some time now since we've been working together in our accelerator. One of the things that you're working on is not just another chatbot. You're really trying to solve a much bigger issue. And some of the research that you shared with me, and according to what I've seen, what you shared, you say 70% of businesses experiment with AI.
Mhm.
While only about 11% actually create something that's measurable to a business value. So why do you think that gap exists, even though AI is the most prolific thing that's happening right now? Everybody's using it. Where do you think this gap is coming from?
I think the biggest reason for that gap is that even though there are plenty of tools out there who,
Hmm.
brand themselves as no code agentic platforms and whatnot, I think the reality of it when you go in and you actually start using some of these tools and you experiment with them is while you might not actually have to write any code, it certainly still requires you to have an engineering mindset. You need to think about building these agents as an engineer, and that's not for everyone. In the average company, the majority of employees are not engineers, uh,
Mm,
and they don't, you know, Joe in sales and Barbara in accounting and Jill in marketing, they don't think as engineers necessarily. Um, so that becomes a bottleneck. Then they
sure.
start depending on people who can essentially translate a business need into an engineering setup for an AI agent to make sense. And then you got competing priorities. Is it Joe's or Jill's request that's most important? And can we actually follow it through door to door, right? So
Hmm.
that's, one of those problems that we're so set on trying to solve here. Essentially, the idea that the biggest experts in finding operational efficiencies across your company are the people who are struggling with those inefficiencies on a daily basis. And those people need a tool they can operate and manage themselves, not having to latch onto an engineer to help them figure out how to automate that. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
I've heard you often say that AI tools create more work instead of less, and
yeah.
given what you're saying, that's where that's coming from. So it makes sense.
And another point on that, actually, if I
Yeah.
may, is A lot of when I say AI agent, most people what they think about is this sort of chat GPT like sidekick that
Hmm.
sits in the sidebar of your browser or something like that,
Yeah,
or the Chrome plugin or whatever, and you can tell it to do stuff, and it comes back with some sort of work done or a response or a suggestion for how to do stuff. So that's often also what I mean when I say that AI creates more work, but because ultimately what happens is then just you're managing one more task, right? You used to be clicking around your SaaS platform. Now you're clicking around your SaaS platform and talking to an agent about how to click around your SaaS platform.
very
Um,
true. Very
so
true.
what you really want actually is an AI agent where you can say, I've got that SaaS platform. I don't want to touch it anymore. Can you do that for me? And
Mm,
that's what we're trying to do.
amazing. Um, what mistakes do you think businesses make when trying to adopt AI these days?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the biggest mistake is probably trying to do too much right away.
Mm,
Uh,
okay.
you know, mm, what I see time and time again is people who, come with very grand plans of, I want to automate my whole entire company, which may or may not theoretically be possible, uh, but they have no way of getting started with that. What's the
Mm,
first step towards that, right? So trying to break that down into saying, that's fine, you want to automate the whole company. What's one task that's really bothering you today that you just wish was not on your plate anymore?
mhm.
Start with that, and then incrementally increase the more and more stuff that we do.
No, that's great. And actually, that dovetails well into my question following, because I want to dig a little bit more into your company so our audience can really understand the value that you're providing.
Mhm.
So, let's say I'm a small business owner, what would my initial experience be like if I were to utilize and sign up for your platform? What is that initial journey like?
Yeah. So if you went to our platform right now and you signed up, the first thing you would experience after providing a login would be a simple chat field, and a little cartoon character Bob pops up and essentially says, hey Joel, or hey Payman, describe one task you wish you didn't have to do anymore. And then you simply just enter, I wish I didn't have to monitor this email inbox or to fill in this report. And the Bob then goes into our repository of 3,000 plus integrations and examines, what's the best way for it to automate that, and which tools do you use? Now, if you said spreadsheet, it's going to look up Google Sheets or
Hmm.
Microsoft Excel and so on. And it comes back and say, okay, I can do that for you. Might ask a few more qualifying questions and say, do you want that done daily or weekly, or do you want to approve before I send out, or whatever it might be. And ultimately, one or two conversation turns, it actually gives you a Bob that doesn't just sit as a sidekick on your browser, but actually owns that job end to end. If you told it, I want this daily reporting to be fully automated, it's going to figure out where's the data I need to pick for the reports, which spreadsheets do I need to put it into when the report is done, who does it need to be sent to, should I share it on Slack, and it's going to do that end to end. So it's a full job off your plate.
Amazing. So this brings up a concern that I assume a lot of your customers have is around security. In
Yeah,
order for your platform to operate, they need to have access to sensitive company data, whether
yeah.
it's financial, whether it's HR related, what have you. How do you provide the security? Do you have you as the founder of GetBob, do you get personally visibility into the data, or how does that work? How do you secure this?
Yeah, no, so we're hosted on enterprise grade infrastructure. Most of our customer data sits in encrypted storage in Google Cloud, and
Hmm.
all of the SOC and HIPAA and compliances. Generally speaking, when you connect an app to our system, we don't start pulling any data from that app just because the connection exists. It essentially just opens up, a window for the Bob to go and interact with that app, pull limited data sets when it needs it to perform work or manage tasks. And once it's done with that, whatever didn't need to be, permanently stored in its memory, which is usually nothing, is just flushed and thrown away again. So nothing is stored in our infrastructure. We've built a whole security layer on top of that as well. So when you connect an app, you can actually very granularly go in and define exactly what actions are users and bobs in the platform allowed to perform within this app, which data streams can it listen to. So if you take, for instance, a CRM like HubSpot, right? There's so many things you can do within there. You can create
Mhm.
prices, you can create products, you can modify records, you can send emails, you can delete records as well, right? Just because you connect HubSpot doesn't mean you want any user or any Bob within the platform to be able to do all those sort of things. So you can
Sure.
actually turn on and off all of those settings all the way down to the individual user and Bob.
Do the employees in your company, do they have any direct visibility into
No,
the customer data? You don't.
no.
Okay.
I mean, there's obviously, there's, special scenarios where if we need to help a customer
Sure.
troubleshoot something, we need to get granted a temporary access to review data and so on.
Sure.
But our salespeople, our marketing people, the general uh,
Hmm.
member of the GetBob team cannot access anything that a customer has not explicitly granted them.
Yeah, amazing. Now, you make a big distinction that these are AI colleagues, not AI
Yes.
assistants. So elaborate on that a little.
Yeah. So it goes back to that whole, is it a sidekick? Is it not a
Mm.
sidekick conversation, right? Most AI agents and chat-based LLMs, what you do is you manage tasks with them, right? You have something that needs to be done. You tell it to do it. It comes back with a proposal for how to do it. Then you go back and say that didn't meet my expectation. You go back and forth. But that's not how, real business works if you
Sure.
think about how humans collaborate in an organization. When you hire a human, you delegate a job to them. You
Yeah.
get a colleague that end to end owns that job. We're trying to emulate that with AI agents. It goes back again to this idea that, we want to empower non-engineering mindsets to think about business optimizations. And in order to do so, we need to create an interface where you can interact with it by thinking like a human rather than thinking like an LLM.
No, very, very good. And this was actually one thing I was going to ask you. Your goal is to turn the Bobs into pretty much real humans. How close do you think you are to that?
I mean, we have customers on board who have outsourced entire roles
Oh,
to Bobs. Um, I was on a call earlier today with a company who essentially has 17 distinct Bobs running across various functions, whether that's lead generation, nurturing, marketing, CRM, sanitation, and so on and so forth. I think, our sweet spot of customers are what we usually call growing teams.
hmm.
So it's businesses that either are thriving or want to be thriving, but they are exploring alternative growth trajectories than just hiring a bunch of people. And that goes back again to this experience I had myself coming from small startups and seeing how they scaled and how success inevitably turned into inefficiencies. So we want to empower these companies to grow and continue to hire, real key talented humans wherever they need, but not waste resources on repetitive tasks that can absolutely be managed by autonomous bots.
Amazing. I remember back in the day, early PayPal days, I remember reading that when they created this, all of a sudden they saw that people, were also buying and trading cars, selling cars, and really surprised them. So, that whole motor side came out. Have you seen your customers use your platform in such a way that you're like, wow, I didn't think that would be a good use case, but it is. Have you seen anything like that from your customers?
Uh, we certainly have, use cases we did not think up that, turns out as a customer onboards. the interesting thing about our customer base is we're a pretty ubiquitous tool. A lot of customers join us because they have some sort of go-to-market function in mind at first. That's the initial use case they're trying to automate. But then when they join us and they start exploring the product and realize what it can do, they realize this can work in any department, right? So we have customers who joined us because they just wanted to automate some sort of, pull data from A to B and put in a spreadsheet and do this and so on. And then they realize, oh, it can do sales too.
Hmm.
And then they realized, oh, it can write blog posts for us as well. So the real fun thing is to see how they expand after they've joined us. I think that the wildest use case I can think of right now is a customer who's actually connected Bobs to their own Claude Cowork. So they talk in real-time audio with Claude, and Claude communicates then on the back end to Bobs and orchestrates the work that Bob needs to do in real time while you're talking to Claude. That was a fun one.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually thinking of eBay. I think I said PayPal, but that's the one I was thinking of
Yeah.
eBay. Anyhow, I'm dating myself here. Michael, one of the things we've talked a lot about, you and I during, the accelerator is differentiation.
Mm.
Right. So many companies out there with AI. Everybody's saying I have AI, this or that. So how do you see yourself? I mean, if you're gonna say this is how we're different, this is the differentiation that GetBob.ai has versus everybody else, explaining it in a very general term so that someone not in this space can recognize the differentiation. How would you describe it?
Yeah. And you're like, let me start by saying I think you're absolutely right that with Codex and Claude Code and Lovable and so on, like the basic idea of technological moat, unless it's like patented technology that you've invested millions in, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's almost gone at this point in time. Anything I build, somebody can uh, take to their own coding assistant and clone fairly fast. The two things that are really difficult to clone, in my opinion, are experiences and community. And I think that's essentially, the tech companies that are being born right now or are in their infancy, like ourselves, the ones that will thrive the most, the ones that has actually thrived already, if we think about breakout examples like Lovable, for instance, are the ones who provide a really unique uh, brand experience and product experience,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones who's been highly focused on building a community around their product, community of builders or community of creators and so on. So the way we are addressing that, obviously, if you look at our product, go to our website, you'll hopefully notice, that's at least the intention, you'll notice we don't look like most SaaS companies. We have a very distinct visual style that the whole intent of that is to not cause tech intimidation, not even maybe feel like it's a SaaS product at all. Uh, and that's a quite intentional choice from our side. On the community side, we've actually launched a marketplace, and we're
Okay.
beta testing that with the first small group of AI engineers and creators, which essentially allows anyone who you know, understands business operations or AI automations to go in, create Bobs that solve specific use cases, and then publish those Bobs into a marketplace that other users of GetBob can use
Oh,
and
interesting. Yeah.
actually earn a revenue share on the adoption of these Bobs that they publish. So our long-term, our idea for how do we go from, a proven product with value for the customers that we're able to attract on our own and so on, to going to the point where we become this ubiquitous tool with 100 use cases and so on, is to grow through our marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
No,
I can think of, based on my own experience and past work and so on, I have a few domains where I know a lot, and I can think about, automation use cases for them, and I'm good at explaining and selling that, and that's how we get customers today to a large degree, right? But there's 99 on other use cases that I know nothing about, and I am
Mhm.
not able to sell, and we don't have resources to market every single one of those use
Sure.
cases. But if we have a thriving ecosystem of creators who understand those particular use cases and have a financial incentive to promote our solutions for those use cases, then we become a machine that sells itself. And that's really where I think, we can create some moat that's hard to replicate.
No, that's an incredible business model. The other thing I think is a interesting distinction. You're not building one agent to do just a task. Your Bobs can actually work together. You can
Yeah,
have a team of Bobs that are working, pretty much like a team of humans that are go off and work on, okay,
exactly.
here's my operations team, here's my SDR team, and one is in responsible or customer service where you have multiple Bobs. And that's, I think, a very interesting distinction with what you're doing than just a standard, like a prompt, like you were
Absolutely.
describing.
Again, we're trying to essentially emulate real life. And
Mm,
real life is not single player mode, it's multiplayer mode, right? The way you want to work with AI agents within your business should be multiplayer mode too.
hmm
You should be able to have multiple humans interacting at the same time with the same Bob, because that's how business and real life work. And
Yep.
you should have multiple Bobs being able to autonomously assign and delegate tasks to each other. I had a fun experience the other day. When you create a team of Bobs
hmm
in our product, you can then organize them into essentially operational units. So you can say, here's my marketing team of Bobs. Here's my finance team of Bobs. Here's my sales team of Bobs, and so on. And the moment you put two Bobs in the same team, they instantly understand each other's presence and know each other's skill sets, and they'll decide autonomously when they can make use of each other. So I
And they
had
can get along.
usually they get along just fine. But I had a fun experience shared with me by a customer the other day. He had a marketing team, and in that marketing team, he had created one Bob that helps him publish blog posts into their CMS, and then another Bob that every morning sends him a draft for a LinkedIn post that he could publish.
Mm,
And then he had an idea for a blog post that this blog Bob should write for him. But
yeah.
accidentally he tagged the wrong Bob when he
Oh, okay.
posted about it. So he sent a message to the LinkedIn Bob and said, write this blog post about XYZ. So the answer he got back from this LinkedIn Bob was actually, hey, I don't think I'm the right guy for that task, but I have my colleague over here, the blog Bob,
I
which is
love
a
it.
lot better. And it actually automatically reassigned that task over to the blog Bob. And the blog Bob responded back with the written blog post.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
That's
like,
great.
those are some of those moments where we know we built it, but
Yeah.
we get a little bit mind blown too when we see it happening.
That's amazing. Let's dive in a little bit more into your business model. One of
Yeah.
the things I've noticed, you're still fairly early in your journey as a
Mhm.
startup, but you're gaining a lot of traction very quickly. One of the things that's quite impressive to watch is your conversion from your freemium model into paid model. How
Yeah.
have you been able to achieve that?
So, on average, we convert about 75% of all our free trials into paid plans within the week of the trial's duration. And
Hmm
I know that that's an insane stat that,
Yeah.
is way above industry averages, even in the best quartile. Um, we've designed our onboarding flow pretty specifically for this. So when you go into use to sign up for our product,
hmm
we actually wait until quite far down the sign up funnel before we, do any kind of checkout for the customer. For them
Okay.
to sign up for a trial, they do need to do a Stripe checkout where they connect a credit card. We don't
hmm
charge that credit card right away, but if they don't cancel within the next week, it'll transition into a
Automatic
paid
sign up.
plan, right?
Sure.
So that helps us ensure that the people who get that far down the funnel, that they start using our product and consuming AI tokens, they are
They're
invested
interested. They're
in,
just not kicking the tires, right? That's
yeah.
the thing.
And the other thing we do is we don't present that checkout until the point where they've actually already created the bobs that they want to use in their company.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not like we go up front and say, hey, before you even learn if this is something that's relevant for you, we need your credit card. They
Mm,
get to express what's my problem. They get to see what's the solution. They get to see a bob that's ready to start working. And only at that point in time, if they want that bob to start working, that's when we ask them to complete the trial sign up. So
interesting.
it
Okay.
helps keep a lot of noise out of our trial funnel and ensures that we get high quality signups every time.
Okay, for the benefits of our viewers, what's your pricing model? Is it per bob? Is it per seat? Or how do you, what's the SaaS model like? Is it per user, per month? How do you have it
So
set up?
the main pricing factor of our products is essentially how many job completions the Bobs will do per month.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
and I want to distinguish here, a job completion is not the same as just, doing one task.
Hmm.
One task could be pull something from an API or send an email or whatever. A job completion is a more end-to-end deliverable. If you've
Okay.
scheduled your Bob that every morning it should do a full sanitation of your CRM,
Hmm.
that's one job. If you ping it and ask it to tell you a dad joke, that's also one job. So you get to
Mm.
kind of think about, what's my best usage of this. So
Interesting. So if we had let's say a customer asks a Bob to say, I want you to write one blog post every day and every day of the month, is that 30 jobs that they have to pay for, or is that
yeah,
one? Okay. So
that
that's
would be 30 jobs that they would have to pay for. And, that would fit into our entry level pricing plan, which is
I see. Okay.
$29 a month. Yeah.
All right. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, let's continue forward. Tell me some of the learnings as a founder that you've ran into, as you build this company. What have been some of the things that, in the journey as a founder and building a startup, there's a technology side, product development, there's the whole marketing sales side. Once you have a product to sell, there's a fundraising side that I know you're also going through. What are some key learnings that you've learned through this process?
Oh, there are so many. I guess, a couple of things. Fundraising is a sales job. It's, if you haven't gone through a fundraising process before, you might think what I need to do is go out and tell about this brilliant idea that I
Hmm.
have and demo my product, and they're all gonna love the product so much that they want to put money into it. That's not at all the fundraising task. The fundraising task is to go out to these investors and increase the likelihood that they can see they can make money off you. That's
There you go.
essentially it, right? So I kind of think of it in the way that you have, it's a full-time sales job doing fundraising, and you've got a whole audience for whom you're not selling your product. They don't, in many cases, they don't even care that much about your product. Uh, what they care about is, do you have a business model that seems like it can return their investment 10 times over? And if it cannot, then figure out how to do that. I think the other learning I would say is, the people that you work with.
Mhm.
Um, I've been lucky. My co-founder Gergo, we worked together for 9 years before we started this company, so we've known each other extremely well, and we mesh very well. Um, And it turns out we both have the founder mindset that
Good.
is
Good.
needed to run a company. I've met a lot of other people also who are amazing salespeople or amazing
Mhm.
engineers or amazing operational specialists, but those are not necessarily the same as great founders. You
Mhm.
need a very distinct type of person, for the first 5 to 10 roles in your company. And I'd even go as far as to say the motivation the thing that motivates these people to go show up and do the work every day is probably something very different
Yeah,
than the next 100 people you're going to hire.
absolutely.
Uh, and you know, learning that even though I've worked with people in the past who have done amazing work and I've been so impressed with them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can or even want to be founders. That's
Absolutely.
been an important learning for me.
That's absolutely key. I mean, the entrepreneurship mindset is very different than an employee mindset. So
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. What keeps you motivated when things aren't going exactly as you would like? There's many difficult days, many challenges. You're constantly firefighting. When all those things sometimes hit at the same time, what keeps you
yeah.
motivated?
Um, you're making me think about this banner that was hanging on the wall of this dojo. My son used to do jujitsu,
Oh, okay,
and
nice.
so on the side of the dojo was a banner that said, uh, "You either win or you learn. There is no lose." And I think that's a good mindset to have as a founder.
Mhm.
You know, being a founder is a constant state of crisis interrupted by brief moments of intense success, right?
Yeah, there you go. Very well
And
said. Yep.
uh, so you need to, you need to learn how to cope with the fact that most of the time you're just super worried about cash flow, worried about
Yes.
compliance, worried about customer satisfaction, and figure out how that becomes a catalyzer for learning and doing better.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that would be my answer to that question.
No, that's great, and I agree. So you've been part of very large teams, right? Given your enterprise experience in the past, and you have a fairly small team now. Have you seen your leadership style change between when you were part of those major companies versus now, or is it the same?
Yeah, when I left my last employment to go solo, at that point in time, we were in a 4,000 people organization, and I think I counted, I was managing a total of 16 different product teams at once,
Hmm.
right? Each of those product teams being, what you in engineering you would call a pizza-sized team, so 4 to 8 people, one slice of pizza for each, right? Um, and so, that was well north of 100 people. I think even up to 200 people. And so at that point in time, when you're managing that kind of organization, I think what you really, really need to be careful with is not micromanaging, and not wanting to stay on top of every process that happens. Figure out a way to delegate, figure out a way to trust, figure out a way for these cells of people to move as autonomously as possible. And for me as a leader, that was definitely a learning journey. I was not necessarily good at that when I became a leader first. It was something I
Hmm.
learned over the course of those 15 years being a product leader. I think a lot of that you can actually take with you to smaller teams again.
Sure.
Uh, just because you're then managing, a team of 5 or 10 or 20 instead of 100 or 200 doesn't mean that your employees are suddenly going to start loving micromanagement.
Yeah,
Nobody loves that, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
so there's definitely things that you can take with you from that. On the other hand, the thing about small teams is that there are not necessarily distinct roles for every single problem.
Hmm.
So, you know, one of the startups I worked on, we had a poster on the wall that said, "It's not your job."
Yeah,
And I like that one, right?
sure, sure.
Just because it's not your job, it doesn't mean it's not your job either,
Right.
right?
Very, very important in a startup, in a setting that we're talking about. Let me zoom out a little bit. Given your, expertise within the AI industry, what do you think is one misconception that people still have about AI today?
I would say it's probably that AI can't be creative. I actually want to
Oh,
argue
interesting.
against that. I
Okay.
think, AI can be very creative if given the right environment to be creative within. There's no doubt that ultimately the technology of it is
Hmm.
it's sort of a word prediction machine, right? Sort of, the autocorrect keyboard, you write the first word and then it guesses what the next word is and so on. So there's definitely something around it will try to repeat patterns that have existed already in the past. And that
Hmm.
leads people to say, well, it can never make up anything new. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it certainly can. Like uh, as a as an example, the our character Bob has gone through a lot of iterations, and there's definitely also been a human touch on it. But ultimately, Bob, the way he looks, and the whole we've got a whole pack of I think 30 plus Bob emojis that we use across our own Slack workspace,
Nice.
and
You use them on ours. I've seen them.
yeah, it's a little bit of viral marketing there. I think
Yeah.
I'm not bombarding you too much, but I
No,
did
it's
bring
all
a
good.
Bob
It's
love
good.
emoji over to your workspace too. And so that is a created it's a creative output that is happening in combination with humans,
Yeah.
but it's certainly creative.
No, for sure. Um, So I'm sure you've seen the some folks that say that this is the start of Skynet from, the movie, right? This is the beginning of it, and that's where we're headed. What are your thoughts in that regard? I mean, we're still at its infancy of what AI can be. I mean, this is so early. But if you were to go out 5, 10, 15 years from now, could something like that movie come about? Yeah, possibly. But what are your thoughts since you're deep into this?
Yeah, I think the wisest thing you can do at this point in time is not rule anything out
Oh, there
because
you go. Okay. There
I
you go.
mean, if you had asked me 2 years or even just 6 months ago to guess what's possible,
Yeah,
today, I probably would have, said this or that. No, that's definitely not going to happen that fast.
yeah.
Um, the way I look at predictions for the future is generally always, I think as humans, uh, we tend to underestimate the potential impact of new technologies.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, we overestimate how fast that's going to happen.
Sure.
So yeah, it's not the futuristic scenario I'm dreaming of,
Oh, for
Skynet.
sure.
The
Yeah,
other
yeah,
the
yeah.
other version I've heard of that is Wall-E, where
Yes,
AI does all the job and we're just these big round blobs
exactly. Yes, yes.
hovering
That's a good
vehicles.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think it's something we have to think a lot about as humans.
Sure.
There's no doubt that, we can see already today, and I'm part of that movement. AI is taking over jobs that used to be human-led, right? So what's going to happen to our society when those jobs don't exist anymore? Are new jobs going to appear? Are we all going to have to cut each other's hair instead?
Yeah.
What's the future there? And I don't have an answer
Absolutely.
to it, but I think it's worth talking about.
No, for sure. I think we can have a whole session on that as well as AI ethics,
Yeah.
all the decision-making process and how much the influence of the people coding the AI goes into what the AI actually does. But I think I'll leave that for another session. I think we can jump in for a whole hour onto that, if not
Yeah,
longer.
for sure.
Let's stay on the entrepreneurship side. What advice would you give founders? And I'm sure within part of Excel, you see many other founders working on AI companies. It is the
Mm.
fastest growing space of a lot of innovative founders are building, software platforms utilizing AI to solve different problems. What would be your advice for founders building AI companies in such a rapidly, growing space? You just said, 6 months ago, a year ago, you would have had a complete different view as now. That says a lot in terms of the fast
Mm.
growing space of this industry.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to them?
So I think, one thing I've definitely experienced multiple times over already in our short journey so far
Yeah.
has has been that whatever at some arbitrary point in time I defined as the problem we're solving,
Mm.
wait 6 months, the problem is solved. Then what, right?
Oh, very good.
Uh,
Very good.
so I think the advice I would give, and especially to people working in technology because it's moving so fast, but I think probably for most founders, is try and figure out a human problem that you're solving rather than a technological
I
problem.
love that. Yes.
Because technological problems are going to be solved. Whatever you think is your distinct advantage right now is going to be table stakes in 6 or 12 months. If you can find a human problem that exists independently of technological solutions, then you've got a lasting problem.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. I appreciate that. So as I mentioned early on, I've had the pleasure of working with you now. I think probably coming up to a year. It's been some time that you've been part of our accelerator. You're one of our graduates, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Can you share with our audience how you discovered us? What made you come and enroll into the Peachscore Accelerator?
So I think the first time ever I heard about Peachscore was probably one of your outbound
Mm,
campaigns. I think I got some email, and it was right in the infancy of our startup, and I think when I joined at that point in time, there were probably so many moving parts still on what is this company and what are we
yeah,
actually trying to solve and so on. It took me a few months before I actually became active
I
and
remember.
started
Yeah, yeah.
utilizing your resources and so on. And I think, thinking back on that, I wish I would have just not sat and wait until I felt like I had a product or a business
Right.
worth presenting, but just start utilizing the Peachscore resources earlier. I think that would have helped me move faster. So that's the advice I would give to someone. If you get into Peachscore, don't wait until you feel like, oh, I've got my product ready, I've got my business ready now, I just need to fundraise. That's the wrong time to start using Peachscore. The right time to start using it is when you're still unsure of all of these things. Um,
Okay.
so that's my own personal,
Sure.
experience. And then I'd just say the other thing I've had immense benefit of working with you specifically has been how you helped me shape my investor pitch.
Oh,
And taking that from something maybe I would be able to communicate well if I was sitting one-on-one with a person and had
mhm.
unlimited time into something I could communicate clear and distinct in 2 minutes every single time, right? That was a leapfrog with you. And the final thing I'd say is um, we've had the opportunity to go to so many really exciting events online and offline, whether it's been, conferences or pitch competitions or, industry events of other sorts. And more than half of them, I'd say, I've found, by paying attention to what you and others post in the
Oh,
Peachcore Slack community and just stay on top of which events are interesting for us and make sure I just send in those applications when I hear about them.
yeah, and actually, as part of that, you were able to attend the session that we had with Plug and Play China. You were able to go there in person. You had to fly out to California to do it, but it was well worth it. So you did fantastic there. So it's been amazing watching your journey with us, and uh, has there been a very specific benefit that you think that's helped you the most by being part of the accelerator?
I mean, to be honest with you, there are so many benefits. I
Oh, that's good.
feel like I would do you a disfavor if I just highlighted one.
Okay, all right. Fair enough, fair
But
enough.
but so the events that we've attended, the advisory and so on.
Yeah.
Then for a company like ours, we actually
Hmm.
have a product that's relevant to a lot of other peers in Peachcore,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
So I've definitely also been able to actually get some customers out of being part of Peachcore just by attending the Founder Connect sessions and
Yeah.
participating in Slack conversations. And every once in a while, somebody will pop up and say, I like what you're doing, show me, and that can turn into a customer too.
Absolutely. And we're very big on that. We love seeing our founders work together and, support each other. So that's amazing. And it's been absolutely incredible having you part of this program and being part of your journey, seeing you grow, seeing, not just the pitch deck, but everything else that you're doing and the traction that you're gaining. So let me ask you, um, this will be a fun one. Forget about GetBob. What's your other favorite AI tool out there? If you had to say one, what would it be? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to. So I use a lot of codecs.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Okay.
that's me being, of an engineering background. It's helped me deploy several key parts of infrastructure for GetBob, but it also
Mhm.
helps me play around with concepts that are completely unrelated to what we're doing in GetBob. And then I guess this is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but I actually I enjoy AI musical tools as well.
Really?
So
I didn't know that. Interesting.
I
Okay.
have, I've actually got a couple of songs on Spotify too that I've generated through AI, and a few of them have a small but loyal group of listeners.
Is that right? Well, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Next time in office hours, you have to play one for me.
yeah,
Uh,
sure, I will.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michael. What? I think you and I can keep talking for the rest of the day, but we do need to bring the session to an end. Absolutely incredible. Really appreciate you sharing your insights, not just about your company, but the industry and everything else that's happening. And it's been a pleasure having you on the program. I'm happy to hear that you're getting so much value from it. And it's only the beginning.
It is.
You've graduated, but as you're doing, the more engaged you are, the more value that you're extracting. We're happy to support your journey. So let's, given that, I'm going to bring this session to a close. Thank you, everybody, again. This has been Michael Lemberg of GetBob AI, founder and CEO. If you like the episode, please like, subscribe, and we'll be back with another founder in the Honest Hour session. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.